Hi there, Working Homeschool Mom. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is episode number 43 of the Strike a Balance podcast for Working Homeschool Moms. And today I talk to Beth McCarter from the Homeschool Graduate. This is the second time she's been on the podcast, and we're going to be talking about an incredibly important topic, and that is mental health and homeschooling. It's a really, really fantastic episode. There's so much value in it, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it as much as I enjoyed recording it. And as always, I would be ever so grateful if you could rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, because it means that the podcast is shown to more working homeschool moms who might need support. And as you know, supporting and helping working homeschool moms is my passion, so I would be ever so grateful. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to the Strike a Balance podcast for working homeschool moms. This is Charlotte Jones. I'm a homeschool coach and homeschooling mom of twin boys. I know it can feel really overwhelming to keep all the balls in the air all the time. So each week I chat about tips and strategies for being a happy and thriving working homeschool mom that you can implement in your life too. I also speak to awesome and inspiring women who manage to juggle homeschooling and work successfully and find out what their secrets are. Be sure to check out my time audit and mindset challenge in the show notes and sign up to my newsletter for lots of cool freebies. And if you ever need to chat, please book in a session with me. I'm so excited for you to be here, and I hope you'll get so much value out of this episode. So let's get started. Are you looking for a new math curriculum? Well, I'm thrilled to introduce our favorite math curriculum to you. CTCMath specializes in providing online video tutorials that take a multi-sensory approach to learning. Favorably reviewed in Cathy Duffy's 102 Top Picks and the old Schoolhouse crew review, the lessons are short and concise to help your children break down concepts and appreciate math in a whole new way. The lessons are taught the traditional way and not to a test. Each one of the video tutorials is taught by an internationally acclaimed teacher, Pat Murray, who is renowned for teaching math concepts in a simple, easy to understand way and in only a few minutes at a time. Using a multi-sensory approach means having the combination of effective graphics and animation synchronized with the voice of a friendly teacher together with a practical assessment. This three-pronged attack makes learning so much easier and more effective. Even students who struggled with math are getting fantastic results, and ones who were doing okay before are now doing brilliantly. Visit ctcmath.com today to start your free trial. CTC Maths is generously offering my listeners an amazing special. Go to www.ctcmath.com/MLH to get a half-price discount plus a bonus 6 months for free. That's ctcmath.com/MLH. Today I'll be talking to Beth McCarter again. I'm so excited to have her back on the podcast. And she is a second-generation homeschooler, a certified teacher, and she also writes at the Homeschool Graduate. In addition, she is the creator of an inclusive and diverse free virtual homeschool summit, which will be taking place again in summer 2023. I'm so excited to have you back on the podcast today, Beth.
Hey, Charlotte, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Okay, so today we're going to be delving into a really important topic, and I'm really excited to get into the nitty-gritty of this. We're going to be talking about mental health and homeschooling. So why do you think this is important in terms of homeschooling, to kind of take into consideration any kind of mental health issues that you might have?
Well, I think it's important for several reasons, but the biggest one being is that if you're struggling with mental health issues and you try to homeschool, it could be pretty disastrous just because mental health impacts every aspect of your family life. And when your kids are with you all day, they'll be exposed more to some of those just negative coping behaviors, and that can really impact their mental health as well. I speak from experience. I was homeschooled, like you said, and the amount of anxiety in our house was just overflowing. And so I've done a lot of work to cope with my own anxiety, and I kind of had to take a step back from homeschooling and deal with that. And I call it the summer of rehab. It was kind of like we travel full time, and so we chose to take the summer off, camp out with my parents so we can address some of my mental health issues, and then jump back into homeschooling. And the difference is monumental. It's night and day how I felt about homeschooling before, how our family was interacting with each other before, and how how we're thriving now because I dealt with those mental health issues.
Yes, I think that's so very important. And as I've noticed with homeschooling, everything is kind of exaggerated, obviously, because I think you spend so much time together as a family. And how would somebody go about actually seeking help?
Yeah, so this one, it seems like such a simple answer. You're struggling, go see a doctor. Well, when you get into it, especially if you're from a country like the United States, like I am, it can be really expensive. You have to look into what your insurance covers. And so there can be a huge barrier to seeking quality help. A couple ways I suggest doing it are do your research, but don't be paralyzed with indecision. Just book an appointment. And you might hesitate a little bit because it costs and you want to pay for things for your children, you want to pay for exciting things, you want to pay for homeschool things. But I encourage you to put the money down and see a therapist. When you attend a session, don't try and judge your entire experience on the first session. I would probably go 3 times before forming an opinion of your therapist. And my mom always says, when you see a new doctor, it's like you're interviewing them because every doctor is not going to be a good fit for you. I've seen therapists that made me feel worse after I left their session, and I knew that was not a good fit. And then I've had amazing experience with therapists that were life-changing. So if your first experience with a therapist is negative or even neutral, I strongly encourage you not to give up seeking therapy and just try another service provider because they're people too. They have wide ranges of personality. I personally recommend from my experience that CBT therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, I guess I added another therapy on there. CBT is life changing. It's all about the behavior. I saw a CBT therapist in college and I still use tactics 10 years later that she taught me. So I strongly encourage checking that out. But there are some really wonderful providers out there. You might just have to take some time figuring out who is the best fit for you.
I think that also takes quite a lot of courage because I know if you visit a doctor, you think obviously they know best.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, for me, I know with my kids and kind of their diagnosis and things like that for autism, sometimes you've just got to trust your gut, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
For sure.
Mm.
That's so true. I'm thinking about just a regular general doctor that I saw recently, and that we struggle also in the United States finding a decent health practitioner who will submit your prescriptions on time and not mess them up. And so our PCP actually passed away from COVID, so we were finding another one. And she made me feel really bad about myself. She told me I was a high maintenance something or other. And I think it was because I was really vocal about my needs. And maybe some doctors don't like that. They would rather you just sat and listen. So I'll definitely be searching for another practitioner, which is exhausting. But your health is all you've got, it's the most important aspect of your life.
Absolutely. So very true. Yes, I know there are those doctors. It's kind of really an old school way of treating patients where you are like, I am the guru and you know nothing. I mean, everybody's got Google nowadays. Come on. We're not that uninformed about things.
That's so true.
And why do you think it's important to kind of not put off taking care of yourself, to shove it to the back of the list, the bottom of the list?
Again, I speak from personal experience. I had a very happy childhood, but definitely some mental health issues passed down genetically to my parents, and they did not were not equipped to deal with them. And so, even though they loved us so much, and I have a good relationship with them now, the atmosphere was very stressful, just because they struggle with anxiety and depression and it was untreated. So we have quite a few family problems now. We were all homeschooled, all 4 of us, and we have become estranged to my 2 youngest sisters. So this is just, I guess, a tale of caution that you put all this effort into your kids, you put all this love into your kids and nothing into yourself. Well, when they grow up and they have the choice of to spending time with you or not, they may choose not to because you haven't taken care of yourself. You're too stressful. You're too anxious. Your communication style is not a positive one. So, this is what really just kind of jumpstarts my drive for taking care of myself. I don't want to go to a therapist. I don't want to take medicine. I don't want to pay healthcare costs, but I do want to have a relationship with my children when they're adults. So, that is my just driving force for taking care of mental health needs now because it will impact the rest of my family's lives.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. And we do talk about generational trauma and things like that. Absolutely. Yeah. We definitely have that on this side too.
Yeah, and it's not fair because like for example, my parents come from very abusive families. It's not their fault, but they have to carry it on their shoulders, and if they don't deal with it, then it passes on down to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Breaking those cycles, like we said. I mean, yeah, I mean, this is what it takes, though, right? Obviously, it takes a lot of hard work
Hmm.
to do it. Yeah. And okay, so obviously self care, especially for working homeschool moms, is a big buzzword. We all talk about having baths, and for me, it's exercise and things like that. But how do you know when self care, obviously it's important, but when it's not enough?
Right.
I mean, how would you know and
Right.
how would you deal with that?
Yeah, so self care is a wonderful thing. I love what you produce. It has been so helpful to me, especially your time audit. I will always talk about that because I took the information from the time audit to go see a psychiatrist and say, look, I don't have control over my impulsivity. I think I have ADHD. And so that was a great data tracking tool. And then you've got some amazing self care out there. And I don't negate, like, for example, exercise. So awesome. I guess where I get kind of frustrated is that it is a buzzword and a lot of people are using it to sell you stuff. For example, to sell bath products or to sell spa retreats. And it's like, you're a mom, you need self care, buy a new outfit today. So I don't like how it's being taken by like capitalism and it's turned into like a shopping experience because it doesn't get at the root of what's the problem. So if you have anxiety, taking a bubble bath is amazing. You're still going to have anxiety. It's a chemical reaction in your body. So when self-care isn't enough, I'm afraid that people who aren't as knowledgeable about mental health because we don't really talk about it. They hear all this self-care stuff, they try it all and they still feel like crap and they think, well, none of this works. I'm not going to attempt it anymore. So self-care isn't enough when you know something underlying is going on and you've tried several things and they don't work. I highly encourage you not to put self care in front of medical care. So I suggest when you have that gut feeling, something's not right. I feel anxious all day long, no matter what. I have depressive periods multiple times a month. That's not something that essential oils are going to help. That's something bigger that you need to talk to a doctor about.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it is true. I totally agree that self-care is, and also I guess sometimes also like drinking coffee and the wine thing as well is also seen as self-care.
Yes, for sure.
I really don't appreciate those kind of things because those are the things that are actually kind of anxiety causing. And if you are
Yes.
like promoting that as self-care, then I mean, you're doing
Mhm.
people a disservice, I think.
For sure. And my mom and I have talked about this before, the wine culture. It's like, oh, girls' night, wine night. And she's like, if people drank as much wine as they suggest we should, we'd all be alcoholics. And
Absolutely.
that's definitely not a good step toward taking care of yourself. But I feel like capitalism and messaging has jumped on these originally positive movements and taken advantage of them.
Absolutely. And also the idea that you need alcohol or wine to cope with your children as well. I really, really don't
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
Hmm.
I haven't even thought of that, but that is so true.
People are always talking about that. Always, always, always. They're
Mm,
like, oh, how can you homeschool? A lot of people say that, oh, how can you homeschool? I'm so excited when they go back to school, things like that. Yeah,
right,
no, that's definitely not something that I enjoy either, that whole idea.
right.
Are there maybe some easy ways that you could potentially improve your anxiety on stress? Like maybe I guess, short term, or like in a day when you're feeling really, really overwhelmed? What are some things that you could potentially do?
Sure thing. And this is a really nice segue. We were just talking about the wine and caffeine. And after I wrote this, I was like, easy ways to improve. And then I thought about it and I was like, it was not easy to give up caffeine. It was not easy to give up alcohol. Why did I say easy? So I guess these are things that you can do on your own without the help of a practitioner rather than easy. The biggest change, positive change in my anxiety has been giving up caffeine. And I know most people are going to be like, "No, don't." And I'm not telling you you have to, but my body is really I guess sensitive to caffeine, and so it would just ruin almost my whole day if I drank a latte. And I love coffee. And when I got on some medication for ADHD, the practitioner didn't tell me, oh, hey, you probably want to get off caffeine. And I thought I was having a heart attack because the meds do something with your blood pressure and then caffeine does. And I thought I was dying for like 3 days. And then I called the pharmacist and they were like, yeah, you don't want to drink caffeine with that. But I think even if I didn't have ADHD, even if it was just the anxiety piece, getting off the stimulants, the coffee, would have been life changing. So I know that is like not fun and no one wants to do that. I do drink decaf coffee. I know there is also like a social thing like I decaf or death over decaf. I've seen that as a meme. But it's really been beneficial for me to not drink caffeine.
Absolutely. I drink 1 cup now a day. And another
Mm.
thing that I found as well is sugar, because sugar can give me
Yes. Oh my gosh.
intense anxiety. So that's also something that I try to avoid as much as possible. Also, obviously not fun. It's all the fun stuff, obviously, but
Right.
yeah, but
Right.
it's worth it.
Well,
It's not, I mean, the short feeling, the
mhm,
short buzz that you get from it, but the crash afterwards, it's just like, I'm like, this is not worth it.
right. And I'm glad you said sugar. Just the other day, so I deal with some impulsivity with like eating and snacking. I had 3 cookies. They were fresh from the oven and they're so amazing. And I scarfed them up. And that sugar just messed me up the whole rest of the afternoon. I was on the brink of a panic attack. So, if you can regulate that sugar, if you can reduce caffeine, if you have anxiety like me, I've found that to be very beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree. And also, I mean, exercise I find also helps. I mean, I definitely find that I need
Hmm.
to sweat to, I do like a really short 20-minute, 30-minute like hit workout or something like that. And I can feel it really helps a lot with anxiety too.
That is something that I have like pushed back on so hard mentally, I guess. And I know it would make me feel better, but I don't know. I have like this behavior thing where it's like I realize that that would make me feel better. For example, meditation really works for me. I it's just the difference between a good day and a bad day, and I still push back on it, which is really frustrating.
But I mean, it is those, it takes a while to, I think, to form a habit though, doesn't it? And I think you need
Mm,
to just start like super, super small. Because
mm-hmm,
otherwise it can feel, if you're like, oh my God, I have to go running for an hour now. I mean, you're like, oh no,
mm-hmm,
no, thank you. It's like
right.
really hot outside. And no, I mean, like, I think just to find what works for you and start
Mm-hmm,
like incredibly small. I found that's what I did, because I used to be like really intense with exercise and then I could just never maintain it. So just
right.
smaller,
Okay.
like 20 minutes a day is something that I can manage.
Yeah, that makes it a lot more approachable, I
Mm.
think. It's funny how like something like that can seem so inaccessible and it's like I don't think I could ever be a runner. But if like you said you just start really small, then it's more accessible. I met with a couple women at the summit this year who said yoga was just wonderful for them. And I kind of thought to myself, oh man, I would love to be a yoga person. Like that would be so cool. But I know that's just not for me. And then I met this one woman and she's autistic and she's actually the leader of our special ed co-op where I send my kids now online. And she said, look, you have ADHD. You've got to try yoga. It's really hard to get into, but you can do it. And like that invitation, the personalized invitation, and also the acknowledgement that it was going to be hard, now I love yoga.
Mm, so true. Or maybe even, I guess, finding the things that do work for you. Because I mean, running, I
Hmm.
know not a lot of people like running. I mean, it's not you
Right,
either you love it or you hate it. But
right.
yeah, maybe find things that are you can sit on a bike, or I don't know. I suppose there are a lot of things out there.
Hmm.
Yes, but yoga is definitely because I guess there's the mind element to yoga as well, which I think is really, really important too.
Yes, it's so
Mm,
important. It's so helpful. But I had this barrier up against it mentally.
mhm,
And I think getting on the ADHD meds has been everything. Now I
mm.
can do meditation, I can do yoga, and I get the benefits from it. And I just wasn't able to before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So maybe some people are not in a position to maybe meet people face to face or
Hmm.
have people who are maybe also homeschooling and struggling with mental health. Do you think it's a good idea, or is it possible for people to meet online as effectively? Do you think?
I am a huge proponent of online community, and there's a couple reasons why. I live in a fairly rural area, so any groups that meet around me don't align with my belief systems. They're fairly exclusive. They want you to align with their religious beliefs, and I just feel like an outsider if I try to participate with them. So if you meet online with people, you can find people with similar belief systems to you. Not that you always want to be in a homogenous group, but it is nice to find some alignment, especially in homeschooling when methodology can be so dichotomous. So online is great if you're seeking people out and you don't have access to those kinds of groups near you. The other reason I personally love online communities is because if you do have social anxiety, for example, I find going out and meeting people so emotionally draining that I can't, it's not sustainable. I can't do it, but maybe once every other month. And that's not good for me because I need those relationships. It's not good for my kids because well, for one thing, I put their social needs before mine and I'll go drain myself at like a meet and greet for them and then have nothing left over for me. But if you have any kind of social anxiety, or maybe you're an empath and all those interactions are just draining to you, online community is fantastic for that. I meet now with probably 4 or 5 different groups and I get something out of each group. And yes, it is to some extent still a little bit like emotionally draining because you're having conversations and that kind of thing, but you are in the comfort of your own home. You can wear your pajamas, you can keep your camera off, you can only participate when you want to, you can have side chats with people. I just find it really much more accessible than in person events. And I found that I've made friends a lot easier online versus in person.
Absolutely. And I think it's so good that people are talking about this because I always thought there was something wrong with me because I am incredibly socially awkward.
Mm.
And I
I
always
don't think you are. You're not
race
awkward at all. But I
afterwards
get that.
about sure, about things that I've said and things like that.
Mm.
And you kind of think, oh, there's something wrong with me. Why am I not sociable? But it's so true because I've also met so many wonderful people like you, obviously, and Kelly, lots of people online that
Mhm.
have been, it's been really, really fantastic. And also because I live in the middle, in the bottom of the world as well with a lot of people who have the same ideas as I do, who do the same thing as I do. I think online community is incredibly powerful.
Right. I've made a real effort this year. I said to myself, I am going to try to make some friends because we're struggling a little bit in our family. I mentioned some problems with my siblings. And so I had diverted a lot of emotional energy to trying to heal those relationships. And now that I've kind of let go of those, I'm able to develop a support system for myself that is so valuable, even though it's all online. I'm probably, there's the likelihood of us meeting in person is very slim, but I really value our friendship. So I encourage people to find a right fit group online and not think that it has to be in person to be valuable.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. And you did tell me you're working on something really, really exciting, kind of related to mental health and homeschooling.
Mhm.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
For sure. So I am working on my passion project. It's called Guided Groups. And it's a membership over, rather, it's not a course, it's a reoccurring monthly membership. So you can stay for a month, you can stay for a year, but its focus is a gentle, guided step by step for people interested in homeschooling in the future. And I put a lot of effort into making it inclusive for all families, families of color, families who are LGBTQ plus, families who really have been excluded from traditional homeschooling groups. I also place a very strong emphasis on mental health. The first unit or module rather is dedicated to mental health. And so every month I release new content. We have some live meetings, and I'm just there as a support system for people who are interested in trying homeschooling. So that will be opening up later this fall, and I have a link to send people to if they're interested in getting more information. And that is the Homeschool Graduate, so thehomeschoolgraduate.com/ADHD, because I will be doing a training. It's rather like a storytelling session on how I'm thriving despite the fact that I've got ADHD, anxiety, depression. I didn't put it on there, but also some sensory processing issues. And I feel like a lot of people will relate to that because we don't talk about it so much. And it is such a big factor of how successful your homeschooling is.
Absolutely. I think that's going to be an incredible group. So if anybody's obviously interested, then I will also put that link in the show notes. And where else can they find you? Is there anywhere else that they could find you online?
Definitely. So I mostly blog thehomeschoolgraduate.com. I don't put a lot of time into social media because, again, I find it like energy draining. I have to be really careful where I divert my energy. And so my blog, and then I pour a lot of, I guess, personality and tips into my email list. So if you enjoy receiving emails with tips and stories, then I suggest joining that. You can do that at thehomeschoolgraduate.com, but that's where the majority of my energy goes into.
Yes, I love your newsletters. They're really, really useful.
Oh,
And
thank you.
yeah, I love reading them. Thank you so much for this. This was really, really, really useful, Beth. I think a lot of people, maybe people who don't talk about it, mental
Mhm.
health and things like that, are going to find this incredibly valuable. So thank you so much for your time.
I hope so. I hope it encourages people to try some therapy out, try some counseling out. It may be a little bit of work, but I'm telling you, the quality of life just is so different from when before I started addressing these issues.
I really hope you enjoyed the episode. Drop me a DM on Instagram or post on the Working Homeschool Moms support group over on Facebook. And let me know what resonated the most with you. It would also be great if you could rate, review, and subscribe, or share the podcast with a working homeschool mom who might need it. It's my mission to support as many working homeschool moms as possible. Until next time, take care. Hi there, working homeschool mom. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is episode number 43 of the Strike a Balance podcast for working homeschool moms. And today I talked to Beth McCarter from the Homeschool Graduate. This is the second time she's been on the podcast, and we're going to be talking about an incredibly important topic, and that is mental health and homeschooling. It's a really, really fantastic episode. There's so much value in it, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it as much as I enjoyed recording it. And as always, I would be ever so grateful if you could rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, because it means that the podcast is shown